Okay, this video is on the difference between simple interest and compound interest. So it is simple interest versus the compound interest So what is the difference? The difference is simple interest is the interest charged on initial principal only. Initial principal only. However, the compound interest is charged on initial principal and every previously calculated interest also. So this is the basic difference between simple interest and the compound interest. For example, if we want to know that, for example, we have 3 years timeline. This is the end of first year, this is the end of second year, and the end of third year, and this is time 0. For example, at the beginning of this first year, which is time 0, we have $1,000. And the annual rate of interest is, for example, 10% per annum, and we want to know, if we continuously charge this 10% per annum yearly, how much this 1,000 would become at the end of third year, provided that this 10% is simple interest. So this is to calculate this the interest values. Let's make a table. For example, at the end of first year, at the end of second year, and at the end of third year. So how much is the outstanding amount? And how much is the interest? And how much is the outstanding amount at the end? And this is outstanding amount at the beginning. So at the beginning of first year, the outstanding amount is 1,000, and we'll charge 10%, because this is simple interest, so we'll charge this 10% always on initial principal. So remember this is initial principal. So on initial principal, we'll charge the interest, that is 10% of 1,000. This is the initial principal, 1,000. So 10% of 1,000 is $100, and so at the end of first year, the outstanding amount would be $1,100. So at the beginning of the second year, the outstanding value is $1,100. Now again, 10% on the initial principal is $100, and at the end of second year, the amount would be $1,200. At the beginning of the third year, we have $1,200 outstanding, and 100 is the interest, because every year we'll charge this 10% on the initial principal, so it would become $1,300. So at the end of third year, the outstanding amount would be $1,300. So if 10% is the simple interest, the total value would become $1,300 at the end of 3 years, if this 10% is charged per annum on simple interest basis. But on the other hand, if this similar interest 10% is charged based on the compound interest method, so let's compare. So this is first year end, this is second year end, and this is third year end. So again we'll write the same values. This is outstanding at the beginning, this is interest, and this is outstanding value or amount at the end. So at the beginning of first year, the outstanding value is $1,000, and we'll charge this $1,000. We charge this 10% interest on the first amount outstanding, that is 1,000. It is 100. So at the end of first year, this total amount would be 1,100. Similarly, at the beginning of the second year, the outstanding amount is 1,100. Now this 10% would be charged in simple interest. We were charging this 10% always on the initial balance, that is 1,000. But in compound interest, we charge this 10% on the current balance. So the current balance here is 1,100. So now we charge this 10% on 1,100, and this would become 110. So by adding this 1,100 to 110, this total value would become 1,210. So now this is 1,210 at the beginning of third year. Now again at the end of third year, we'll charge this 10% at the current balance, the current outstanding balance, that is 1,210, and the 10% of it is 121. Now by adding this 121 into the outstanding balance at the beginning, the remaining value would become 1,331. So now this is the outstanding balance at the end of third year according to the compound interest. Now if you compare the situation here, every year we were charging the same interest, $100, but in compound interest the interest is increasing, because this 10% is not only on the initial principal but also on every previously calculated interest. Okay, now if we use the formula to calculate the interest values based on simple and compound interest, so let's draw the same timeline, that we have 1,000 at time 0, and let me call this 1,000 as present value of money, and this is end of first year, this is end of second year, and this is the end of third year. So if the annual interest rate is 10% per annum, simple, and n is equal to 3, how much money would it become at the end of third year? So this means I want to know the future value at the end of 3 years. So future value at the end of 3 years is equal to future value at the end of nth year equals to present value at the end of time 0 multiply by 1 plus interest into n, and this is simple. So by putting the values of simple interest model, this is present value is 1,000, this is 1 plus interest is 10%, 0.1 multiply by n, which is 3. So if we calculate the figure in the bracket, we'll find this is 0.1 multiplied by 3 equals to 0.3, and plus 1 equals to 1.3. So this is 1000 multiplied by 1.3, and this is equal to 1300. So 1300 was our answer according to the simple interest calculation. So this amount would become 1300 according to the simple interest method. Simple interest method. But if we want to calculate this future value according to the compound interest, the formula would be future value at the end of nth year equals to the present value at time 0 multiplied by 1 plus interest raised to the power n. So now putting the values into the equation, present value is 1000, 1 plus interest is 10%, 0.1, and raised to the power 3. So this would become 1.1 raised to the power 3 equals to 1.331, and by multiplying this with 1000 we'll get 1331, which was our answer according to the compound interest. So this amount would become 1331 at the end of third year according to the compound interest. So this is a simple way to understand the difference between the compound interest and simple interest. Simple interest, we charge the interest always on the initial principal, but in compound interest we charge interest not only on the principal but also on every previously paid interest.